Here we are. We're going to go record. Ready?
Ready.
Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome again to Grandmom's Room, Fostering Lives, Grandmom's Room. Let me just turn this sound off. The place where you can go for all information for those grandmothers that are raising grandkids again. I'm so very happy to have you with me again. Um, Along with my beautiful co-host that is kind of under the weather, but she's just such a trooper, and I just love her so much for it. Renee Zachary, raising her beautiful grandson, Georgie. And, we talk often about just the trials and tribulation of everyday living, just trying to get through the day. And here is a place that you can find support and community with people that have been there, done that before, got the t-shirt and tickets for it. So we encourage you to call your friends and your neighbors and all of those relatives or people that you know that are raising grandkids again, or raising relatives' kids, or just raising kids, period. And come ask them, grab a cup of coffee, a napkin, a notepad, piece of paper, sit in, pull up a chair, and just interact and join us as we go through this journey of raising our children again. I created this podcast because I found that so many grandparents in the United States are raising grandkids again. Out of 6.2 million grandparent heads of households or grandparent-led households, 50% of those are grandmothers just raising kids by themselves. So 50% of our grandparents are raising grandkids, and that's absolutely amazing. And a lot of these raising the grandkids are not by the grandparents' choice. It's by the grandparent by circumstances that have happened that have caused the grandparent to be raising children. So we're going to talk about it. We're going to focus tonight in week three, episode three of Grandmom's Room. We're going to focus on our interaction with DHS, and we'll get some feedback from Renee and anyone else that's going to join us on your experience with DHS when the kids come to as a result of being taken from their parents through DHS. So again, I welcome you to Grandmom's Room, the place where we can feel cozy and warm and safe talking about these very serious conditions that often bring us to tears. And we need a place where we can unload some of this stuff and come together and find solutions. So again, I welcome you, and let's get into the topic. Let's really face it, with child welfare agencies, dealing with them can sometimes feel overwhelming. If you ever had an interaction with DHS, um, it just feels like someone is coming down on you for something you did wrong. But you need to understand what DHS's role is, and what the caseworker's role is, and what your rights are. Again, under being a grandmom, you don't initially have any rights. It is until you take those steps to become the guardian or placed under kinship care through DHS. In this way, they can be your ally, not your adversary. So don't get mad when DHS shows up and you get all scared and worried. It's as a result, their job is to take care of children in all situations. So when they step in, it's a serious situation. However, it should not scare you. You are in control of the children. They're yours. They're not going to take them from you. You need to be aware that they can be an adversary and how to work with them and how to help the children transition. Um, DHS in general is a state agency tasked with ensuring the safety and well-being, and I'm just reading this so that you understand what the roles are. When the child can't safely remain with the parents, DHS steps in to find the best possible living situation, often, of course, with the grandchildren or loving relatives. In kinship care, that's what it's called, kinship care. And child's needs are being met. They oversee the placement. They make sure that the child has health care. The child has food, food stamps, clothing, whatever they may need. That's why kinship care is not a bad thing. So if DHS removes children or the child from from your biological children's home and bring over to you, it is not a serious, bad, horrible situation. A lot of grandparents don't want their children in the system, and we understand that, and that's a choice that you have to make. Because there can be complications, there can be disagreements, and it can get real messy. However, if you just follow some basic rules, interact and communicate with them, and underline document everything from the day those kids come in, every conversation you have with the caseworker, pictures, everything, you will find that in the future, that information will serve you very well. And so try to understand that DHS is not necessarily your adversary, but they can work with you. Generally speaking, a caseworker is someone who is assigned to your children for their well-being. And so you have to follow certain rules and regulations for their care. And yes, sometimes you have to get what is called clearances, child abuse clearances. Renee, did you have to get them?
Clearances?
Any kind of clearances for like being around the child? Did they request any clearances from you? Anybody?
No, okay. No, not in my case, no.
Okay. In all situations, you don't. But if you go into kinship care, you might be required to get clearances. It's usually $10 or $20 for both clearances. It's not an intimidation. It's not a record. It's not a problem. Every person that works in childcare in the United States must have clearances. So that's just saying you don't have a background of sexual abuse or any other felony, and it lets them know that the child has been placed, to the best of their knowledge, in a household free of any criminal issues. So if that happens to you, don't get worried about it. Just fill out the things. You can fill them out online and get them if that's a step that you need. Because generally, again, DHS can be an ally to you and a help to you, especially if all of a sudden you wake up one day, it's just you or just you and your husband, and all of a sudden you got 3 other mouths to feed. And whether you believe it or not, they may be little kids, but they impact your financial situation greatly, because there's always food, and they're kids. They always need food or clothing or shoes or something. And you have to see that it happens. If you have to drive them to school, that's increased gas that you might not have been planning to pay. Fortunately, now I'm in the city of Philadelphia. Every month they give you a $300 stipend if you're driving kids to school. So that's pretty neat. And your kid don't have to. My kids are adopted. My last kids are adopted. My foster kids, even when I had them, that was not available. So now that they're in school and they are on the free lunch or free and reduced lunch meal that most of our inner city kids are on, in schools, Title I schools, you get the $300 stipend for driving your kids. So with gas being the way it is, I think that's a nice deal. So don't get upset when you're asked. Yeah, it's an excellent, $300 makes a difference. That's my gas for the month. So it's good. It's good.
I gotta get on.
I don't know if they have it, but it's through the federal program. So just look under public school transportation.
We have a program, but I haven't gotten it going yet. They've been giving me so much red tape about it because Georgie is not, because public school has buses. They are provided school buses, taking him to therapy, and it has to be under that so that Medicaid could pay for it.
Right.
So I have to go and try to get a voucher or have them repay me for the gases, which I haven't gotten through all of that yet. But because they have to word it in a way that so that insurance can cover it.
Okay, that makes sense. I'm gonna tell you, and you and I both know there's lots of hoops.
Right, right.
Lots of hoops that you have to be jumping. I encourage you to jump through the hoops because you get the benefit. Because if you try to do this on your new 2, 3 children, will wear on you financially if you do not have some additional support. As you heard her say, Medicaid will pay for certain things. If your child has to go to therapy, and a lot of our kids have to go to therapy these days. Um, the Philadelphia school system also has busing. But if you live within a certain number of miles away from the school, then they give you the stipend. So see if that's the same way in North Carolina, Renee, because $300 or $200 or $100 makes
Yeah,
a
well,
lot. It makes a lot of difference sometimes that we could really, really use. So just want to make sure that you understand the kinship care, and then um, so that yes, there's like an overseer with DHS, but don't be frightened. Excuse me, frightened by it. They're not going to come in like with foster care. They may come in one night and just make a decision that they're going to take the kids to another house or whatever. That does not happen in kinship care in that way because you are already a relative. And that's where they prefer to keep the children if they can. Um, However, social workers can be a real interesting piece of work. So depending on who you're working with. Now, I will always tell you, you've always heard, you get more bees with honey than with vinegar, I guess. So try to be as positive as possible. And sometimes you're going to disagree, and that's okay. Disagreeing is not a bad thing. It's just how you disagree. If you disagree by cussing them out, they're going to make your life hard. They're
exactly.
going to, because they have the ability to just throw some little stuff in there. They're going to make your heart life more difficult. However, if you always talk to them professionally and courteously and document everything that's been said, then you should be on the safe side. But um, we've all had experiences, or at least I know I have, and Renee has as well, that they don't do everything right, and that's fine. I mean, they're human too. And in fact, I remember very clearly, I had a little young caseworker, and it sounded as though she maybe just got out. This is when my baby was a baby. Um, just got out of college. I'm assuming she just got, so she didn't have much experience at all. And mm, I just she was just totally unprofessional. She still thought she was at a college party or something. I don't know. And she acted and talked like, and then she made the really bad mistake of putting whatever she was doing on Facebook, which was just really foolish of her and unprofessional. And I definitely told her about it and told her supervisor about it. I'm like, please don't come in this house telling me. I've been educating for over 30, 40 years at the time. Please don't come in the house giving me mandates on stuff that don't make sense. You need to go do some more training or something. And it because I had so much documentation and so much information, um, it it worked out the way I needed it to work out. But another situation I remember when my oldest foster child at the time, she's now my adopted child, came to me straight from the hospital as someone had burned her, and she was oozing with pus and stuff. And they brought the child with the little bag to me with no information, no stuff, and said, "Oh, this is a general child." But fortunately, I knew that there are levels of care. And she would have been, for medical, she would have been at the top, which is a difference in dollars and cents. For each one of your children at different age levels, you were given different kinds of money. And I had to go through quite a bit of writing and documentation. I got what I was supposed to get, but it still took a lot of a lot of the problems, a lot of work to make them understand. I knew what I was talking about and what it was supposed to be. So as long as you document, take pictures, treat them courtesy. I didn't cuss anybody out. I just wrote letters and they had to look back at their records and they had to fix it because I was correct. So just learning, and in fact, when I was looking up, so how do you best deal with DHS? They gave me one, two, three, four, five, six or seven little things. And this is when you're dealing with any system, whether it's DHS, whether it's foster care system, whether it's if your child has autism or other medical issues or physical or mental. They have some recommendations here that I'm going to share with you in terms of having a positive relationship. And one of the things they say is be prepared before you have any kind of meeting or even a phone call. Take a few minutes to jot down any questions or concerns you have. This will help you stay focused and make sure you get the information you need. You have any input into that about being prepared, Renee? With anybody?
Did I have? I'm sorry.
Do you have any input when one of the things that they recommend is always be prepared? Always be prepared before you go to a meeting with a
Oh
case
yes,
doctor or nurse or therapist or whatever. Be prepared.
yes, yes. Because at that time you're nervous and you really can't always remember everything that you need to remember, and it's best to jot those things down before you get there, because things are going pretty fast, and you don't have time to hem and haw about certain things. And when you got key point things that you want to bring to their attention or make sure you get help that you need. So it's best to always be prepared, bring your documents with you. Even if you have to, soon, I think the best thing to do is like when you go to a doctor's appointment or anything, kind of write that down like a journal, the conversation, how it went. I don't care if the lady said, "Oh, honey, today was hectic and my dog got hit by a car." Write that down so you can remember and share that. Like, hey, that day you and I was talking and you said you're going to do A, B, and C, because that was the same day that your dog got hit by the car. So
it's
you
it
you
sounds
really have
funny,
to,
but it's
yeah,
real.
but it's extremely real. Yes.
And because you're that fastidious about that, you'll get the services you need because they know they can't just smooth over you, or they can't talk fast with you, or they can't talk above you because you're going to say, "What does that mean?" And you're going to jot it down so that you have, that day that your dog got hit, you told me ABC.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that way it keeps you and them on track because they're human
Right.
too. Remember, they're human too. Another
And they so
suggestion,
quick to say things didn't happen, because they may have dropped the ball.
and
So
go
that's
ahead.
one way to bring it back to their attention,
And
you
sometimes
know.
they just try to smooth it over.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So that keeps them honest. The next step
Exactly.
was be clear and concise. When you're talking, try to be as clear and direct as possible. If you don't understand something they said, don't hesitate to ask them to explain it to you in a different way. If you ever been in a doctor's office, sometimes you hear them talking among doctors in there, and then a nurse is in there, and they're talking doctor language. They're talking doctor, and you don't have, she has FOCOG or whatever, and you don't have a clue. I often say, stop. What does that mean?
Exactly.
Okay, what does that mean? What are you saying? And they figure you don't know, so you don't know. But
Mm-hmm.
if you don't stop them and say, explain that to me, which is their responsibility. So you don't have to feel that you're making them do something odd. That's their job. That's
Exactly.
their job. So you need to know that they need to be clear and concise. And if you don't understand, ask to explain. And so many people are afraid to ask because they don't want to feel stupid, or they don't want to
Exactly.
feel they don't know, or I'm not
What
as
they always
intelligent.
say, uh, there's never a dumb question, something like that. So you
Eh,
have to be comfortable in asking uh, whatever's on your mind. I mean, I always have a habit of asking the doctors, if I was your mother or a sister or something, would you recommend this? Or
mm,
explain to me that I can, did I get it? I have what kind of EBGBs, break it down so that they feel comfortable talking to you and you pulling as much as you can out of them,
my-
so they, like we said, they are human. So you wouldn't talk to me like that if I was your neighbor. You're going to
right.
try to find a way to get me to understand what it is that you're trying to get me to understand,
Understand, right?
and do
And
it again until I get
and
it.
and right. Ask them many times. Don't feel that you don't have a right to ask, because you do.
Right.
You do.
I
Okay.
want to share this, talking about the doctors, and I don't know if the folks have heard me talk about my grandson previously. And my grandson have a stimming thing where it looks sexual, and it's not. Now, all doctors, just because they have a degree, does not mean they truly wise in all areas. And this doctor recommended that he wanted me to take my grandson to therapy for masturbation. We're talking about a 2 to 3 year old. I don't have a degree and no doctors, nothing. But I can look at this man and know he done lost his mind. He's out of it. You stuck, sir. You stuck on stupid, okay? And now basically had to tell him, sir, this is not masturbation for a 2 year old. Okay. I mean, I'm looking at this man been working for years doing what he do, and you're just experiencing this, and your idea was to tell me to put this baby in therapy. Who has therapy for a kid that age? Excuse me.
Remember, they are human. They do not
Exactly.
have all the answers, but they're human, which makes them fallible, which makes they can make mistakes, and they can be wrong, and they can have biases. They can
Exactly.
have biases just like anybody else. So again, with that knowledge, armed with that knowledge, they just another person like you are. They just happen to be go a few extra years of school to be a doctor, and you went to school to be whatever it is you are. You know what you know, he
Exactly.
knows what he knows. But that doesn't make him better than you or anything else. He
And
can
some
have
things just common sense too.
and you
If
would
people
think,
don't always have it.
but common sense is not common.
No, it's not.
Okay, so I don't care who they are. Common sense, sometimes you got.
Even the president.
Yeah, oh, that's a perfect. Oh, there's nothing else to say, and I don't want to get in there because
Right. I
everybody.
got you.
I,
That's how I say it.
I'm so sorry, Trump lovers, if we insulted you with that, but nonetheless, we ain't even
Mhm.
gonna go there because that's a whole nother story. Anyway, the next point is always be respectful. Even when you're feeling frustrated, believe me, they can make you feel
Right.
frustrated. That's understandable. Try to maintain a respectful tone. Building a positive working relationship can make a big difference in the long run because they can help you or they can jam you up.
Exactly.
Sometimes they can really jam you up by not writing down the correct thing, by not. I mean, and when people say, "Oh, that's the doctor's diagnosis," that's it. Somebody somewhere else thinks, "Oh, well, they know it. The mother doesn't know what they're talking about. Mother only lives with him every day. Mother only knows what he's doing, but the doctor see." Okay, please. So always be respectful.
Mhm.
Um, Keep records. This is so important. Keep a notebook or a digital file where you always take your phone. Sometimes I tell people, you mind if I record this so that I
Mhm.
can remember? I always say so that I can remember. I never say it because I want to tape what you said. I always say so that I can remember the conversation. So keep records, document your interaction, the dates, the times, who you spoke to, with what, and everything was about, as Miss Renee said. Even it's just silly little things like that's the day the little dog got hit by a car. The nurse's dog got hit by a car, and it was a sad day for her. That's a trigger to remind someone of information that they gave you. So
Exactly.
keeping records is so, so very, very. Know your rights and the rights of the child. So that's important. As a grandparent, unless you have kinship care or guardianship or adoption or permanent guardianship, you don't have any rights. It's only once you, or some kind of document that allows you to, notarized document that allows you to take care and make decisions for the child. You don't have any documents and you have no rights. And they will have to say, well, we're sorry, you can't tell us to do anything with this child. You have to get a signature. So know your rights. All right. And follow up. Make sure to follow up. Don't wait on somebody to follow up with you. I always do that because they don't follow up to my satisfaction. So I will, I hate to say I will bug you, but I will. I
Right.
mean, I hate to say it. I'll call you because it doesn't bother me. I'm advocating for my child. I don't care what you feel about it. I mean, I care about you, but I don't really care about how you feel because I care about getting the needs of my child. So if you haven't given it to me in a certain reasonable amount of time, I'm gonna call you and I'm gonna keep calling you. I'm not gonna, oh, it'll get to it sometime. Oh, no, 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 oh, no, no. I'm going to be on it. Okay. So follow up is important. So what happens if you feel like your concerns are not being met? And what happens if you feel that the caseworker or somebody has been disrespectful to you? What do you think that you should do? You have any input on that, Renee?
You pretty much said it. You have to keep following up. And I think to be more personal, to give them reasons to remember you,
Mm-hmm.
you know, um, again, not just the dog thing, but just listen very closely and just find ways to get to them. You know what I'm saying? And being kind and respectful. You know what I'm saying? Just to, how's your day? I know you're having a hard time in all these caseloads. I know you're just tired,
Mm-hmm.
but my baby's such and such, and I need to make sure this and that has to be done. You know, is there anything that you need me to do to help you further along? You just keep remembering that they're tired and they have so many cases. It's so hard for them to stay up with the different things that goes on. Sometimes not to tell them all your business, but if you could give them a little story so that it help to trigger their thinking, to get them going. I really need this, because I'm trying to get him in ABC school or whatever, and I only have by this time or date. I mean, if you got a lazy person, you got a lazy person. And sometimes you got to just show up at their door, you know,
Amen, amen, amen,
you
amen.
know, so the phone calls will work for a little while, but then you just have to show up.
Didn't you have to show up? But getting back to something you just said, whenever I go to my children's or to myself, I do have that interaction. I make sure to develop a rapport
Right.
with
That's the word.
with with the nurse or the doctor. And I do tell little stories so that when I speak to them, and sometimes in me telling them stories, they will reciprocate and tell me a little story about, well, I have a foster child too, or I don't have a foster child, but I take care of my nephew or whatever. My
Right.
nephew is very close to me. And what I do is I remember that when I go back. And so I'm like, oh, how's your nephew? And that
Yeah.
makes such a difference. Oh, you heard me.
So
You
how's Jeremy
remember,
Lee doing?
you know,
Jeremy.
but
Yeah, remember the name. Yeah.
it
And write
worked.
that down. Yes.
It works very
Mhm.
well because they feel that you cared enough to remember their story. You got to remember, like Miss Renee said, they see hundreds of patients a day or in a week. It's hard to remember one
Mhm.
person, but I developed such a relationship. They always remember.
Right.
They always
Mhm.
remember. They always remember that I've adopted two kids. I'm in school for a second doctorate. They remember that kind of thing because I've had this conversation with them and what's happening with their children and when are you moving on? Are you going back to school to get such and such? We had that kind of conversation with them. And it really works and it puts them on your side. So
True.
that is just so important. So when you have a disagreement, and you're going to find those you have disagreement, sometimes you can have, and you should try to handle that in a positive way.
Right.
Because hollering and screaming gets you nowhere. And again, they have the ability to jam you up if they want to be mean. They can create hell in your life for saying that, but they can. And so you try to avoid by doing that. If you have a situation like I can tell you with that young caseworker, I wind up talking to her supervisor. And in one case, I went straight to the top. I kept biting the supervisor above them and above them until I got the result that I needed. Okay. So I don't have any problems with going above your head. But don't, and I always say, don't give me a reason to do that.
Right.
But I will, because again, my first concern is the child I'm trying to help here, trying to get support for, get care for, whatever the situation is. That is what my priority is. So I have no problem if it gets foolish going over your head. I will first try to deal with the person itself. Now, I'm not going to, you do something wrong, you trip up wrong, I'm going to run straight to your boss. I'm going to confront you with it. Now, a lot of people feel, oh, I don't want to say anything because they're going to take my kids. No, don't worry about that. Unless it's something really serious where it looks as though the kids are in danger. They don't want to take your kids because then they got to find another place for them, and that's a lot of work and paperwork. So they really don't want to do that. But so start with the caseworker herself and try to deal with them in the most generous way that you can. And then if that doesn't work, then you have to move to the next level. So let's see, what did they say? One of the problems with kinship caregivers is a feeling like their knowledge of the child isn't always valued or they're not truly seen as the primary caregiver. It's life. Well, you can change that. That's just a perspective. That's somebody's perspective of you. And yeah, I think most of us grandparents are old enough not to be too concerned about that. We're not worried about I tell all of my kids, I've never worried about what people thought. If I am the primary caregiver and I have the documentation as such, there's no argument there. I don't care what you think or believe. You might think I don't know, but as the primary caregiver for this child, I do know about the child because I've invested in this child. I've taken this child on, so don't tell me what I don't know about my kid. I don't have to agree with you, and I can even be wrong, and I don't have a problem with that either. But you don't insinuate that I don't know my child. And just like Miss Renee has said many times, sometimes she feels that they're not listening. They don't get it. They don't get it. She knows what's going on with Georgie. She's had him since he was 6 months, so she knows his, even little what I call quiet tweaks and turns and twists that no one sees, but it means something.
Exactly.
You know what he's saying and not saying. And sometimes you get the feeling that these experts, because you're not trained in that area, you don't know what you're talking about. And it's just the opposite. So don't let anybody intimidate you because they have 2, 3, or 10 degrees, in the area. You know your grandchildren because you know them from a place of love, which is far more powerful from their professional knowledge. So if you believe something, your child needs something, you advocate till you get it. And it's just that simple to me. Okay, a couple of more things and then we're going to close down. This was a good conversation tonight. I just really appreciate you, Renee, for hanging in there with me. Which is so when it goes for more information and support in navigating the system, I highly recommend you starting with the website. Or they said just go on the website. Or I'm always on the DHS's website. That's how I
Oh,
find their name, or whether it's the DHS or the caseworker or the doctor's office or whoever the program is. Don't be afraid to research. And this is why I say to grandparents, don't be afraid of this technology today. It can be highly useful to you. And you need to be connected with it, especially if you're raising a new generation, because what computers are doing now, grandparents, if you don't understand it, you're going to be lost in the sauce. And the kids are going to be talking all over your head and you not have a clue. So if you really want to stay, really want to help and support your child, it behooves you to maybe take a couple of courses. And they have them at senior centers. They have them everywhere, libraries. Just go and find out about the computer, find out about these crazy phones, find out all about the social media. Don't be afraid of technology, because if you're in a position of taking on your grandchildren and you've accepted that responsibility, you accept all the things that go along with it. And a part of that is being up on their school and their education and their health and technology, since that is their world. You need to be abreast with it. Any input on that, Renee?
uh, no, no. I'm trying not
Okay.
to get you repeated. No,
Hmm.
no, just my mind just all over the place, and uh, I do have issues with the technology from time to time,
We all do.
and but I just kind of
Wing it.
exactly.
It's okay. I'm still trying to figure out my phone.
Yes,
I'm
yes,
still trying to
I
figure out.
know.
The kids tell me, I said, I want to post. How do I post into Instagram? I still haven't figured it out.
Okay,
I saw your Instagram. I still
yes,
haven't figured it out. I can't get it from a video to the Instagram.
right.
You know,
Every time is a challenge. Every time,
and
but
TikTok.
hey, yeah.
I don't even like TikTok, but
Uh,
the kids are always TikToking. They even have my animals involved in their TikToks. So, you know, you have so it's no sin in acknowledging I don't know, but I'm going to find out. Just like
Before
we've
we
been
know it, we're gonna forget that we didn't know it. You know what I'm saying? Because we're gonna be past that part. Because we're gonna move like everything else does.
yeah,
So
yeah,
we'll get it. We'll get it.
we'll get it. I've been trying for weeks to live stream this to a couple of like
Hmm.
StreamYard that gets
Hmm.
us on Instagram and YouTube and Facebook all at one time instead of flipping around and having the video and upload. I haven't figured it out, but I'm getting closer each time. You know,
Right.
I haven't quite figured it out, but I'm almost there, and I'm not going to give up because I believe this is important to give to a lot of grandmothers. So sooner or later, Renee, we won't be talking to ourselves, but
Right.
I'm not giving up. And this is
You
also
know,
the
on my
mm,
TikTok page, I get some cute little notes from the people, and they just sharing that, how they think I'm so special for doing what I do. They don't know, oh, I'm doing everything. I'm pulling out my hair, my wig, everything. Just to get through it, just to deal with my baby. And I love him so dearly. But it is a challenge every single day.
and they didn't
Yeah.
even know that.
Yes.
They didn't even
Yes.
know that. I have a teenager, and only God keeps me from killing her every day.
Yes.
Only
Yes.
God, only
Yeah.
God, because
Yes.
teenagers have this raunchy,
Yes.
just
Any
stink
old way. Yes.
attitude. I don't care attitude. Now she's not doing well in school. You know she's had a baby, and which she's happy. Strange enough, I make her take the baby everywhere, but she's taking care of babies so big and fat. I mean, I have to compliment her on that. Right now, the baby
Right.
looks very, very
Oh,
healthful, and she is a precious little joy. But boy, her mother, every day is a challenge.
right.
It's like
Right.
she'll be 18 in 700 days. Okay. So
Mhm. Okay.
I actually know exactly. So, yeah, I know the seconds to the hours too. So she'll be 18 years old, okay?
Uh-huh.
But that says it all. But
Right.
to me, God has asked me to get her to a place, to step, get her to that point in her journey. I just ask God to give me strength not to kill the child first. You
Right.
know, just Lord, don't
Yeah.
it's just easier if it's put her out of my misery. Uh,
Right.
but nonetheless, it is a challenge every
Mhm.
single day.
And
So
this is just real talk. And people have to understand that this is real life, you know? And today in the store, I'm in the store, Georgie all over the place. Georgie grabbed this lady because he's running from me and he wouldn't let her go. Now he acted like my son, oh my God, he's such an actor. I mean, he had to do the whole fainting thing and help me, call ambulance. I mean, he's doing all this stuff. And I just took the lady's shirt, sorry, ma'am, and snatched him up. And she nicely, in the best way she could say, oh, is that your child? Is
mm.
he's adopted? I'm like, no, he's mine. And I had to come back and apologize to her. I was saying, listen, this is my kid. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not apologizing for it because I took my shoe off. I had to take him in the dressing room to tear his butt up. He was doing everything and was not listening. You know, people, let's be real. If you allow police to
Real,
come and kick your
real
butt
is
and
real
kill
talk.
you, and hey, then I should have the right to do what I have to
It's
do. As long as I
necessary.
don't kill him, it's my blood. You know what I'm
Right,
saying? And I'm
right.
doing it out of love and keeping him from doing this to you when he in 20 years.
Well,
So,
let me just put another spin on that so that you're prepared.
mhm,
Speaking real, when they get a little older and they
mhm,
know about talk to friends, well, if she hits you, you can call DHS on her. So your baby hasn't gotten there, but I've been there and done that.
mhm,
Okay,
mhm,
been there and again have T-shirt for it because from the oldest one, you know, um, if you say something wrong or if you grab them by the coat or whatever, um, and she'll go and tell the teacher, well, she grabbed me and whatever. And so DHS is looking at me. But you see, I've had 40 years of education and I document everything. And this child has this, and this. She is a habitual liar, whatever.
mhm,
I have
mhm,
the information so that when they now see her name, she's like, okay. Well,
mhm,
she has found out that I turned the tables on her because she has had so many diagnosed issues and been in therapy. I just showed them those diagnosed issues. They take one look at that paper and they know. And
mhm.
so again, documentation, it pays for you, but she's tried it all. She's
Right.
figured out that doesn't work
And I
anymore.
don't want nobody to walk away thinking we're mean. Because
No,
if
we're
we were
real.
these mean people, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing. I'm stopping my life to raise my grandchild where he got two parents out there in the street doing their thing. Here it is you stopping your life to raise two kids that's not even blood to you, and you doing this out of love. So no, we are loving, kind people, but we ain't putting up with no nonsense if we can stop it.
I tell my ones, look, you have the right to be angry. You have a right to be mad about whatever it is. What you don't have the right is try to rock my world and affect my life in a negative
Mhm.
way because that's not going to happen.
Right.
I will give you what you need. I'll take you to therapy. I'll do whatever it is that's necessary. But when you decide purposely to
Mhm.
try to create chaos, I'm going to turn it back on you every single time.
Right.
So now you need to make some decisions because I'm not going to be a part of it. I'm going to be happy in my life. I'm going to be joyful. I'm going to move forward. And you don't want to move forward with us, that's your choice. Everything is a choice. And see, that's what you have to do with these children today. They're a little different. So they're not where you could
Yeah.
just backhand slap them and they would go over there wounded and know their lesson. That doesn't work anymore. You have to deal with them on a mental area. You might have to pop them a time or two as it is, and that actually is
Mhm.
allowed, but you have to deal with their psyche
Right.
differently. You really have to
Right.
deal with their psyche differently. And so you have and nobody can tell you how to do that. You have to figure out the best way for you. You're still struggling with Jordy. He's only what, 6?
6,
Let's not
yes.
imagine him at 12.
That's what scares me, but I got it. Yeah, yes.
So this kind of conversation, these kind of things, and hopefully we have a bigger audience now that can help you with, because he's not the only autistic child in the world.
Exactly.
There's plenty of grandparents that are dealing with older autistic children that
And
have
they
had.
I'm sorry.
That
And
have,
they
no, that
hear
have
our
had the same
stories
kind of
and
problems.
relate.
Yes.
Right. They can relate with us.
Yes.
Yes.
And they can give you some suggestions or prepare for this. This is what's coming. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're trying to do for each other so that we can stay physically, mentally, spiritually, financially, emotionally stable. Because if we don't, we can't do anything for these children. So again, Grandma's Room is not only to give you resources, but it's a place for you to refresh and restore yourself physically and emotionally, so that you can get the strength and the knowledge that you need to deal with these children today. As we're loving them, we also have to care for them, and we cannot allow their issues to rock our world and to change our world, because that's just not fair. So in closing up, I'm just going to say that there's recommendation was saying that the navigating DHS on any system can feel really daunting. But remember, you're doing what is incredibly important work by taking care of your baby. So understanding any of those systems, the caseworkers, the social workers, whatever, learning effective communication strategies, you become a more confident and effective advocate for the children in your care. So that's very, very important. As you can see, we're laughing. We must keep this demeanor at all times, no matter what is going on. I think, and I'm going to use my teen again. You know, when she is doing off the rails or whatever, I'm just looking at her. My face is looking just like it is looking at. It doesn't even move. It doesn't twitch. And I'm like, except to maybe raise my eyebrows and say, okay, you want to go there? You know, and that's a training, because I wasn't always this way. Well, I've been this way for quite a few years, but I wasn't all out. But I had to back that up because Renee's known me for 50 years, but I've always been pretty calm, cool cucumber under even strange circumstances or stress circumstances. And that's what you have to become, because teenagers today are going to throw some things that you can't even imagine, or young people, stuff that you can't even imagine. And if you get upset, you can't think.
Right.
If you get upset, you're going to respond emotionally, sometimes to the detriment of yourself and to your children. So therefore, you must learn to remain extremely calm and grounded, that you're not in this by accident. God chose you to take these kids. However the circumstances came, I believe that God chose you, and chose you because he was confident in your ability to give these kids what they needed, and for you to provide them with a stable home that they're not getting elsewhere. And so with that, that's a gift, and with that's a blessing. So that must mean you must be very, very stable. And I said to someone else the other day, I'm like, what I do is I plant my feet like a sumo wrestler. You ever seen a sumo wrestler?
Yes.
They said for sumo wrestlers, you think of planting your feet and make your roots go through the ground, and then you're immovable. So with planting my feet flat on the ground and my faith, I'm unrockable. You understand me? If you really want to come across this mountain, come on. Okay. But I don't move. Okay. And so if you think of that in that way, no matter what your little ones are doing, because they're always going to do something.
Child,
You're like, okay, I hear you, I see you, but this is the way it's going to be. You know, they're screaming and fits. I mean, I've been through all the tantrums, the banging on the wall, the kicking of things, the breaking of things, and I'm like, okay, well, that's a part of your bill now. When you get a job, that's what you owe me. Okay, all right, nothing's free. I have to pay for this, or I'm going to take it out your allowance, or however that you understand that that's not acceptable. So with that, I'm going to close off. It's 9:00. Thank you so very, very much. Any closing words, any closing thoughts, Renee?
No, I like what you said. Stand your ground. Can you hear me? Okay. Yes, and my phone get ready to die. Yeah, just simply stand your ground. Um, like we mentioned, I have one that's very smart, and he's doing everything to rock my boat, and I can't let him do it. I have to stand firm, and and I just got to think a little harder and smarter to deal with him. So, yes, that's
Okay.
you can
Okay,
get
good.
through it.
You can, and you will, and you will. And with the
Exactly.
support of more of us coming, we're going to get each other through this difficult challenge.
Exactly.
So I thank each and every one of you for being here this evening. I think this was a wonderful conversation. I think it was a needed conversation. And I will see you back here at next Thursday in Grandmom's room. Until then, I love you and God bless.